Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. It's exciting to see so many new faces. We're thankful for that. I am in the camera. I am. I think I'm in the camera, right? So we're so happy that some new people are here, and then our regular people are with us today. So thank you so much. My name is Deb Davis. I'm the facilitator of the Space Coast International Association for Near-Death Experiences. That's why we put it into a little SCIANDS. And we're a chapter of the IANDS organization. The IANDS organization started out as a research and education group back in the 80s. And then what has happened is small groups all over the world have formed. And some of them are smaller than this group, and some of them are much larger. Some facilitators hold their meetings in their home, and some of them in stadiums, I guess. That's how big they are. But we're growing, and we're finding that more and more people are becoming enlightened and aware of their spiritual journey. And that's what we are here to help you with, understanding your purpose. We hope that you've come with an open mind and an open heart. That's the main thing. Hi, Dottie. So with that being said, we also are not of any religion. We're non-religious, but we're spiritual. And we really want to provide a safe place for everyone to be able to share their thoughts. And we do that by just respecting people's thoughts. You don't have to, if it doesn't resonate with you, fine, that's okay. We understand that we're all on a different level of our spiritual journey. I would say that 10 years ago, I was an infant in my spiritual journey. And because I had two parents, a husband and a dog that all died in 2010, and I only knew where one of them went, and that was my dog. I knew dogs went to heaven. The rest of them, I wasn't quite sure. So my friend and co-founder of this organization, and I know this is repetitive for some of you, but Lynn and I, Lynn was about 12 years older than I was, and she was my friend then. And when I was saying, where did my parents go? One was an atheist, one was agnostic. My husband was an Israeli Jew, and I just wasn't sure. And she said, well, I think you need to start listening to some near-death experiences on YouTube. NDEs, she said. And I said, what's an NDE? That's how much of a novice I was in this area. So I did, and it just helped me so much to understand our purpose by listening to their story. It helped me with my purpose for here, why we're here, and then it also kind of helped me to understand where we all go. And so it was very hopeful for me, and that's what Lynn and I decided. We would become facilitators in a local area like this. And so we hope to support you. We don't do counseling, but we help you find, if you need help in talking with people, we can help you with that. But for the most part, we are providing a learning environment. And that's my background, teaching. And so it was perfect for me. Okay, enough about me. I want to get time. Want to make sure that we have time for everything that our speaker has to say and share today. But I wanted to thank you, first of all, for being here, and for the Zoom people for being online. Without you, and without you going out and telling people about our organization, we wouldn't grow. And today, I think we have at least 6 new people, totally. So that's wonderful that you're finding us, and we hope you come back. We hope you go to our library books and check those out. We're growing, and we want to continue to grow. I've always said, I have a vision of us being in a stadium one day. We'll have speakers coming in, and there'll be thousands of people hearing stories like, well, they're all different. I can't say like Peggy's. They're all very different because we're each and every one of us unique. I always do a drawing and give out a little present, and it's a very little present to those that have come here and that we're showing our appreciation for you. And this is the month of appreciation, right? So with that being said, we have the bump. Okay. This is Angie. She's going to draw the lucky ticket. Look at your ticket. And I've got a small gift for you, the winner. And you go ahead and call it out.
353527. Oh, yay.
All righty. This is Tyson. He's new to our group, and we're glad you're here. Just a little gift that will remind you of Thanksgiving, but it's very dietetic. You won't worry about calories. Okay. Next month, it's December 15th is our meeting. Just jot that down, please. It's we changed it. So on our original calendar, it was for the following Sunday, but we moved it back to the 15th. And we're going to have Terry Lynn Kiln here. She's been a speaker before, and she has some really interesting things to share with us. So if you missed her the first time, you definitely want to come back and hear her. She's even got more information. So definitely come, and I'll send out an email at the beginning of December telling you all about her. If you'll go to our webpage, that's SCIons.com, and go to the blog page, you'll find that information about our speaker and the Zoom information and all of that. So do that. We also have a YouTube channel, and every one of our meetings are now recorded, and then they're put onto the YouTube channel by Serena. She's doing that for us. And so you can go to that YouTube/SCIons.com. So that's another place. And then if you put your email there, I'll send you 2 to 3 emails a month. I hope that's not too much for some of you, but I just send out a beginning one and then a middle one, and then towards the meeting, I send out a reminder. Is everyone getting that? If you're not getting it, it might be because I couldn't read the email address, or maybe it's going into your spam, but check that. Okay. We are looking for at least 2 to 3 board members to serve with Angie and I. We are growing so much that we need a little bit of help. So if you're interested in being on our board, and some of you may not be, but if you're interested, it doesn't require a lot other than a commitment to attend 10 out of 12 meetings. So you can miss a couple of meetings during the year, but in a calendar year, if you could commit to 10 meetings, and then if you have a special skill, like Serena's considering being a board member, and she has a skill, and one of them is to make a website for us, a new web page, and she's doing the recordings on our YouTube channel. So what a blessing that is. I was so thankful that she wanted to do that. If you want to be a part of our board, then all you have to do is contact me on an email, and I'll send you an application. And then on December 4th, our board is meeting at 5:30. The place is not determined yet, but we will meet at 5:30 as a new board, and we'll move forward then. Okay. If you have any questions on that, please email me. We'd love to have you. Particularly if you have any sort of skill, like we need someone to help with the library books and catalog them and do all that. If that's something you love to do and you have the time, boy, could I use that help. I really could. All right. So let's get ready to listen to our speaker today. I can honestly say that I am so thankful that she and Jim decided to come. They were going to Zoom, then they weren't, and then they decided to come and stay with us. And what a blessing. It's been like she's done some fabulous things, like bake some bread, 2 loaves of bread, some cinnamon buns today. It's made it like Thanksgiving. It's like family coming, and I feel like we are like sisters now. She's my little sister. But anyway, it's just been so nice to get to know someone on a real personal basis. I just love that. And so they've come from Columbus, Ohio area, not that town, but a little bit below there. And if any of you got to read her book, and I hope you did, if you did not, she is gifting you a book, an e-book, electronic book. All you have to do is contact her on NTV.
NDE-TV.
ND,
Show them your hand.
yeah, NDE-TV, Near Death Experience TV, at
Yahoo.
yahoo.com. And she will send you a copy of her book. It is, now I'm going to be honest, I've read lots and lots and lots of books, and maybe parts of it I resonated with. I mean, it was just tough. I would read a chapter and I'd have to walk away because it's a tough read. She's lived through a whole lot and survived a lot. Sorry, I'm getting emotional, but it was it was hard, but it's well worth it. So please try, if she sends it to you, try to read it. And I bet you no one will be able to sit down and read the whole thing, but you will all in one night. It's too emotional. But she's done so many wonderful things for people, period, for children, particularly. And the fact that she has been able to do that with her upbringing is short of a miracle, short of a miracle. So when you think about our lives and how hard some of us have it and have had it, and then we turn it around and we choose to love, when we had a choice to not love, but she chose to love. And with that, I'm going to let her jump in, or I'm going to need tissues. Hi, Janelle. How are you? Boy, that boy of yours has grown. Janelle is she is Lynn's daughter. So Lynn was a co-founder with me, and that's her daughter and grandson. So we're glad to have you here. So this is Pegi Robinson, and she is here today to tell her story. And I think at some point she's going to give you some time to ask questions. So that's why I gave you the little notepads. If you need some more, they're over there. Get a notepad and you can jot down your questions. I'm going to move over into the audience. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Pegi. Thank you for being here.
So yeah, just reintegrate. Anybody that wants me to email them a copy of my book, it's free. Just leave me your email or just email me and say, send me a copy of your book. If any of you want to hear me read it, this is in part 1 and part 2. I read part 1, which is about half of the book, on my YouTube channel. And you can scroll through there and find it, or you can, when you send me an email or leave me your email address, just say, send me the link to that and I'll send you that video and you can hear me read it. I like to listen to people's NDEs when I'm falling asleep at night. So if you want to hear me read it to you. So I never know when I do this where I'm going to start. And after what you said, I know where I'm going to start. But I would like to say I haven't done a in-person IANS group speaking since 2019. It was in Hawaii. I had just been on Dr. Oz. It was a good year for us. We were on Dr. Oz in January, and on his birthday in March, we went to Hawaii and I spoke to their IANS. How I come to write my book. I call myself an accidental author because spelling was my worst subject through school and college. It always put me down in grades. Um, but the kids are all out of the house and I was traveling with my husband with his work. And I started having PTSD from my childhood and from my work. I had been investigator for children's services, and everything, all the bad memories was like playing like a broken record that would start over and over and over. And I thought, how do I get this out of my mind? And he went to work one morning and had wrote it all down in a notebook and stuck it in a drawer the night before. I was a monster. I was trying to trap it, like there, stay out. And then I felt just as bad. And so I just said, God, I give up. And like I'm waving the white flag. Like I'm just stuck with this. And all of a sudden I had a vision. I was like hovering over, watching myself at our creek back home. And I'm bent over, picking up bits of something like light out of the creek. And I had this aha moment. I realized I have been trying to get rid of the bad experiences in my life and all the good experiences in my life, the miracles I've had, the NDEs, the spiritual experiences, and all that under the rug, just the same. And I realized that I had to write my story. And when I wrote my story, I thought, who am I writing this for? And as I wrote, I thought, oh, I think it'll just be for my grandkids. When they get old enough, tell my kids, give this to them. But then as I was writing, I would come to some really hard parts of my childhood. And nobody ever shared a tear for me. And so for Deb to stand here shaky, try not to cry, I thought if one person ever reads this and shares one tear for me, that's all I need. Like I needed the world to shed a tear for me. And so thank you. So when I was 25 years old in 1986, I was pregnant for twins. I had 3 little boys at home. My 2 babies were 4 and 5, and a 3-year-old that was my nephew. We were in the process of adopting from my disabled sister. And it was the happiest moment in my life. I was standing on our hill. We had just bought property. It was Easter Sunday. And I thought, God, how did I get here? Just 7 years ago, when I was 17, I was standing on the hill praying to God to help me, give me the steps that I need to succeed in life, because I knew my parents were going to kick me out when I turned 18. And so I stood on this hill at 17 and I was praying, God help me. And all of a sudden, God give me these steps. You need to get your driver's license. You need to get a job. You need to, be prepared for when you turn 18. You need to get over this ex-fiance I was crying over. And I did all those things. I hear it is 7 years and we bought our property. I'm standing on this hill now. And I was just like in this bliss moment. 3 little boys praying for twins. We just bought this property. We're gonna build a new house. I was, homeless right after I turned 18. And how did I get from there to there? I'm in this bliss moment, standing on this hill. And we had let our little boys venture off a little and play. And because we lived in town and they had to stay right there in the yard and let them venture off a little. We had a creek, but it was always just ankle deep. And all of a sudden, this bliss moment was interrupted by my 5-year-old son, Matthew, yell, Mom, Jeremy. And Jeremy is the 4-year-old. And suddenly it was that scream that no parent ever wants to hear, that blood curdling scream that tells you your life just changed. And my husband at the time, Jeff, he took off running to the sound of the boys. I was frozen in fear. And I started praying, God, you don't give us more than what we can handle. Please don't take my son, Jeremy. Take my twins if you have to take a child today. Like I'm bargaining. And then all of a sudden, I'm hovering over the field. And I'm praying so hard that I have left my body. And I don't realize that until many years later, it was like when I hovered over the pond when I drowned at 5 years old. Of course, I didn't make that connection. I just know I'm in this place of knowing. Suddenly, I know what happened to Jeremy. I don't have to go look. I know. And something tells me that Jeremy's drowning in the creek. And I say, that's not possible. That creek's only ankle deep. And something says, but we've had a lot of rain and melting snow, and he has fell in, and he's scared. And if he would just calm down, stand up, he'd be okay. So instantly I started, instead of praying to God, I'm now praying to Jeremy. Like I'm hovering over this field and I have this knowing. And I say, Jeremy, calm down, stand up. It's not that deep. Walk out of there. And then I slowly start to walk down. And then here comes Jeremy. His dad had just reached the edge of the creek. And Jeremy, I see his little brown hair coming up. And he didn't even look at his dad. He walks straight towards me like he's in a trance. And he comes right to me. And I'm like, am I seeing his ghost? I can't believe he's okay. And he looks up at me, them big blue eyes. He said, Mom, was you worried about me? And I fell to my knees like, my God, Jeremy, you're my baby. And I hug him. And that was Easter Sunday in 1986. And when Jeremy was 20, I told that story for the first time at his New Year's Eve party. And I what prompted me to tell him. And he walks out of the kitchen. He had been in there making a drink with his girlfriend. And he said, Mom, I heard you praying. And I was telling the story to his cousins and his friends. He walks out and says, Mom, I heard you praying. You could have heard a pin drop. Everybody's mouth went, oh, everybody's mouth gaped open. And I thought, okay. So that, I'm thinking, how does this work? Are you telling me, I'm thinking to the universe, are you telling me this stuff's real? And because I now had my NDEs to process. Well, that was, so I go back when Jeremy almost drowned, and I'm praying for the twins on Easter Sunday, 1986. The next day, I started having pain. I'm praying for twins. And I'm so happy about being praying for twins because I was praying for Jeremy. I was depressed 9 months because my ex had told me, my husband at the time, I had to get fixed. And so I had got fixed with a C-section with Jeremy at 20 years old. If I didn't do it, he would divorce me and take the kids. And so here I am pregnant because I had got it reversed. And the next month I was praying for these twins. Now I'm having pain. And the doctor said every woman has 5% chance to a pregnancy. This tubal reversal will give you 5% more. And so I thought, oh my God, I hope it's not to a pregnancy. I called the doctor. He says, Peggy, I did ultrasound while you're in my office. Both babies are in the uterus. It is not a tubal pregnancy. So I called him a few days later. The pain's worse. I can hardly walk. It's not a tubal pregnancy. It's probably where you've had 2 C-sections and the tubal reversal surgery. And now you're pregnant and it's twins. It's just stretching your uterus. You're fine. By Friday, I couldn't walk. I couldn't get out of bed. I told my husband to take me to the emergency room. So he took the kids down to his mom's, the 3 little boys down to his mom's, and was driving an hour away to the hospital. And when I got almost to the hospital, my pain got so bad that I felt like I was dying. And I was holding a baggie because I heard before if you take, this stuff that you can find out what's wrong with the pregnancy. I never thought I would hold my twins this way. And I started crying. And I had a feeling that I was going to die right then. I said, God, please don't let me die right now. Let's just a couple miles to the hospital. If I'm going to die, let me just die there. And because I don't want my husband to be all upset in the car. And I could just picture him getting out of the car and, my wife's dead in this car. What do I do? I said, God, just don't do that to him. If I'm going to die, just let me get to the hospital. So we get to the hospital, we go in, and I tell the nurse, I think it's a tubal pregnancy. I said, I don't know if I'm going to throw up or pass out, which I'm going to do first. I said, but, so she puts me in a wheelchair and gives me a blue bowl and has my husband stay in, fill out papers, and starts to push me down the long hall in the emergency room. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna be sick. I need that bowl. I couldn't lift my fingers off the armchair, of the wheelchair. And I can't lift a finger. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not gonna throw up. I'm gonna pass out. And I'm gonna pass out right now. Well, I had irritable bowel from stress so much that it was nothing for me to be thrown up 2-3 times a week in my early 20s. So I'm now 25. And I hadn't done that in a long time, but I know what it's like to pass out. You just wake up and, there's no dreams or no hallucination or anything. But suddenly I thought, oh, I'm going to pass out. And that's what I was expecting, just pass out and feel better and wake up. So I my chin hit my chest. And when my chin hit my chest, suddenly it's like I'm a rocket. When the rockets, we just watched the film at this Kennedy Space Center yesterday of the rockets. And I'm like, my husband, like, is that what you've been talking about? I said, yes, because I've always said when the rocket takes off and there's that, and there's this clocking, clicking, can't say the word, knocking, thank you, knocking noise. And we was at the Space Center thing yesterday. I was like, do you hear that knocking? I told you there was knocking. But it was just like that. It was this loud shooting, like if you're in that fire, whatever that is, when underneath the rocket. That's just what it was like. And I'm like contained in this. And I'm shot like a rocket so fast, going straight up to space. And there's this knocking noise. And I could tell that I'm in this tight, dim place, but yet I could see through the walls. I could tell we're going through galaxy and galaxy and galaxy. How this stuff works, I don't know. But I knew from that I was dead. Because when does that happen? What is taking me so far away? And at first I thought, I want to escape. I want to run away. How do I get out of this? How do I get back to my boys? And then I realized I was dead. Now, I grew up Christian, and I was always told that we all wait till the end of the world and leave our graves and all go at once. But that's not the end of the world. I'm going right now, for whatever reason. I'm just trying to make sense of this. And I said to my kids at goodbye, I said, I didn't want to leave you, my children. I'm so sorry. And so I'm going through this fast, loud, bumpy ride, like a roller coaster ride. And all of a sudden, I'm suspended in white light. And I look around and I look down, I don't see me, but I feel just like me. I feel like I have body and arm and hands and everything. And if it was a room, it would be the ceiling, the walls, and the floors white, but also in the middle. It's like I was contained in light. I thought, what in the world? This must be heaven, but why am I alone? Did I do something wrong that I don't remember, that I'm going to be alone for eternity? And so I look around, like, is anybody here? And then on my right, say if it were on a clock, it would be like 3 o'clock. I see a beginning of this panel and like a people, but all I can see is a faint outline, almost like a coloring book, but it's so faint you can't see the bold print of the shape. But it's like, who's there? And I'm looking, and there's a real faint outline. I make out a shoulder, like up the head, and then the next shoulder and up the head. And it's like maybe 5 people standing there. And then my eyes drop down because I feel like I still have eyes. And I see a row sitting up front. It's like a jury, like one standing and the sitting in front. And I'm trying to squint, see who's there. And I noticed one in the middle sitting. And in my mind, I think that has to be God. So I thought I had a complaint department. And I'm like, hell no, I won't go. You can't make me. I have got 3 sons to raise. And my youngest one is a nephew. His adoption hearing or permanent custody hearing is next week. I can't be here. And I grew up very abused, very unloved, very unprotected and I thought, I cannot let my kids grow up without a mother's love and protection like I was. And then the scene opens up on my left, just like a movie screen. And it was so real. It was like you had just walked into a store and there's a lady there, check it out. And this kid stand there on the left screaming. It's like on the floor, throwing his fit, like demanding what he wants, and he wants it right now. And I sensed the mother standing there on the right. And I didn't see her, but the sense that she was there. No, you can't have that. And I felt that was God's way of showing me this scenario. And like, you're acting like a spoiled child. Like I had to act like I had some sense. And I was told by an audible voice, the answer is no, it is your time. Okay, since then, all these years, decades later, I hear people's NDEs, and they're always told, it's not your time, you got to go back. I was told it wasn't my time. I never heard of NDE. I couldn't, I thought this was it. Never once did I think they were going to let me come back, but I really, because I didn't know that happens, but I That's what I wanted. You got to send me back. And so I thought, okay, I got sent. So I said, okay, God, if you can show me that my kids will be better off without me for whatever reason, I agree to stay. But if not, I beg to return. And then I see, so if we're in a clock to give you this reference, I'm seeing myself somehow across from me. Like if I'm the center of the clock and straight in front of me at 12 o'clock here, I see me standing there screaming out all these reasons, my dad did this, my mom did this, my brother did this, I can't stay. And then I'm bargaining, if you can show me if my kids would be better off. And then I can say the panel's like 3 o'clock. So if like, say 1 or 2 o'clock, my eyes catch the back of a man, and instinctively, I believe that's Jesus. I just see the back. I see this dark hair to the shoulders, below the shoulders, and on a white robe, and he's just standing there still. And somehow, shoo, I'm right there beside him and say, this is the back of Jesus, and this is the back of me. And I don't like look at his face or anything. There's no time for that. It's just like, as soon as I join him, we're down. And we're hovering over top our trailer in Tuppers Plains, Ohio. That quick, we're back down to earth, but it's in the future. Now, that's why I didn't tell my Andy so long, because it's made no sense. It's in the future. My sons are discussing, my 3 boys are in their bedroom in our trailer because we hadn't built our house on the property yet. And it's like they had just found out I had died. And they're standing there discussing in their bedroom the fact that mom has died, and it's nighttime. And there's their light on their ceiling, and there's their dresser, there's their bunk beds, and they're standing there on the floor in front of the door discussing the fact that mom has died. And Jeremy says to Matthew, I don't care that you say mom is dead. I want her back. I want her back right now. I felt his pain in his heart so bad. I retracted, and now I'm back up in the white light. But now I'm not the center of the clock position. I am right in front of that panel, and I am crumbled at their feet. And I believe that I am crumbled at Jesus' feet. And they say, if they say in the Bible, I didn't think about this then, but they say that Jesus sits somewhere, I guess it says in the Bible, that Jesus sits on God's right side, but he was on my right. It was like he was sitting on God's left because he's on my right. He's right of God in front of me. And I'm crumbled at Jesus' feet. And I can't say I saw his feet. I can't say I saw the bottom of his garment, but I felt like I did. So I don't know if I, created like I knew where he was. I like filled in the blanks of this, this scenario. And I believe I'm crumbled at Jesus' feet. And I realize it's not God's fault that I died, it's mine. I got my tubes tied. I got them reversed. I took that chance, it was a small chance, but I took it, a chance of dual pregnancy. And I caused my sons to be motherless, not God. And I caused my death, and I caused my twins' death. And I thought, okay, I accept it. It's horrible. I caused this horrible regret and remorse, but I'll just stay right here, and I'll just wait until my sons are old men and they die, and I'll wait right here for them. And then this huge wave of like a fear come over me. What if my sons, because they lost their mom at such a young age, what if they hate God? What if I've heard of that sons lose their moms when they're young, kids lose their moms, and they hate God. They blame God. Like I was just blaming God for my death. And what if they never come here? What if I never see him again? And I was all this anxiety again. And, I don't have this beautiful NDE of rainbows and butterflies and all this wonderful things that people have. I hadn't heard of NDEs. This was just what I experienced. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what if they never come to heaven? And then I think somebody's got to teach them about Jesus and God in heaven, right? Because when I first got to the bright white light, before I saw this panel, I thought, God, so heaven, Jesus in the Bible was real because I'm somewhere. And I said, you got to tell people, or you got to let people go back so they can tell that this is real. And because people's getting tired of the Bible, I don't understand it when I read it. And, I was just me. I was just raw me in heaven. And so I'm thinking so as I'm crumbled in front of Jesus, I see physical hands now come up in front of my face like this. And I'm trying to see Jesus. And I say, who else will teach them about you? And then I am back in a wheelchair in the emergency room. And I think, what the hell was that? I was just in heaven accepting it, and now I'm back. And then I heard the nurse that had been pushing me, was talking to another nurse and they got me, I don't know if they're looking for room for me or what they're doing, but they got me parked there in the middle of this long hall trying to find me a room. And then something lets me know, I have this knowing, once you feel your feet, you're all the way back. And I waited for a minute, felt this warmth go through, and I felt my feet on the footrest of the wheelchair. Felt my hands on the armrest. I knew I was back. They pushed me at the end of the hall, put me in this room, and this bed's jacked way up high. And there's this bright, big round lights over off the ceiling hanging. And the bed's there and I'm laying there on it and I'm freezing cold. And they had let my husband come back. I'm Jeff, my first husband. Jim was my second husband. And, so I'm freezing cold. They kept bringing me blankets and, I'm just shaking. I'm so cold. And the doctor, my doctor, Dr. White was on call. The one had been calling all week. He come in and he's like, okay, I'm thinking, because I was bleeding by the time I left the house and I was having the pain. He said, so maybe it's a miscarriage, prep me for a D&C. So I'm thinking maybe that's what this all was miscarriage. The pain was so bad. And I guess, maybe I've lost the twins. And so he preps me for D&C and then he sits me up. He says, Peggy, your uterus is still intact. Why do you keep saying it's a tubal pregnancy? And I wanted so bad and I couldn't. I wanted to say, because I was just in heaven and accepting it. Something killed me. I was dead. You don't hallucinate. You don't dream for, however. And it made no sense to me because it seemed like I was there maybe at least 20 minutes. But I couldn't have been. I couldn't have been out a minute because the nurse didn't even realize that I had died. I couldn't say, I was afraid they would put me in a psych ward. My nephew, we were process adopting my oldest sister. She's been in and out of mental hospitals her whole life. And I've always been more like a mother to her than her being my big sister. And I still take care of her to this day. She's 70. And, but so I was afraid I'd be put in a psych ward. And so I wasn't going to say that. And that would sound crazy. And so he said, well, he's going to discharge me. And I said, no, I'm not going home because I had that memory of my sons, discussing the fact I died. And I thought if I go home, whatever just killed me is not fixed. Even though I no longer have pain, like I'm going to pass out and nausea, I don't have any of that anymore. It's all gone once I come back, but something just killed me. So that was real. I'm thinking, so I guess I'm going to die because my doctor's not going to find out what's wrong with me. So I thought, if I'm going to die here at the hospital. And they'll call my husband and tell I die because I'm not going to have my sons finding me dead in the morning. My husband goes to work. And so I said, I'm not going home. And my doctor looks at me weird, looks at my husband like, what's wrong with her? And I was like, you don't say anything, just shrugs his shoulder. And so he says, well, if it make you feel better, you can spend the night, but nothing's wrong with you. So he had me spend the night. Doctor went home, my husband went home, put me in a private room. And I thought, okay, so I'll just go to sleep. Hopefully I'll do ultrasound in the morning. Maybe they'll find it's not tubal. I don't know. What is it? I don't know. So like I'm 25 here. So I would go to sleep and I'd wake up with this pain in my right hip and get my blue bowl. And then I'd wake up covered with vomit everywhere but my bowl. This went on all night. When I was on Dr. Oz, he said, every time you passed out, you died. But I didn't know. I told the nurse, call the doctor, something's wrong. She's, I'm not calling him, he's asleep. And I'm sure they put something in the chart like nothing's wrong with her. Just we don't know why she won't go home. So, but the next morning, the orderly come in and he said, get in the wheelchair. I'm going to take you down to ultrasound. And I said, every time I get in the wheelchair or every time I sit up, I pass out. He said, well, I don't have an order for you to go down to bed. You got to get in. So I got in the wheelchair. And next thing I know, I'm finding my bed and there's a whole unit of nurses around me looking down at me and I'm looking up at them and they're using smelling salts. And they said, every time you sit up, you pass out, we're going to take you flat down your bed to ultrasound. I told you that overnight. Now, if you watch the Anthony Sheen thing, he cut out things. And so you don't hear some of that. Sounds like I went down in the wheelchair because he cut out going down the bed, He had to cut it down to an hour. So I talked for like 2.5 hours and he had to cut it. And so it took me down to ultrasound. My sister met me in the elevator. And so she's on my left. and ultrasound tech's here. And my sister's like, oh, look, I see the twins, Peg, I see the twins. I said, no, they're dead. And I wouldn't look. And just for a split second, I thought, what if I hallucinated that whole heaven thing? What if I, for a minute, whatever reason, I went crazy in the emergency room and I hallucinated all that? And because if I'm crazy, if I hallucinated that, my twins are okay. And they were due in December, and I was going to come home with them, a baby in each arm like I wanted. And for a split second, I thought, oh, okay, you must have been crazy and hallucinated. And from the time it took to slowly turn my head, look at the ultrasound, this knowing come that you didn't hallucinate that, you know, that was real. And I started to look at the ultrasound, see the twins, and all I saw was the tech's eyes bulge. And she jumped up, her chair fell back and hit the floor. She ran to the phone on the post and said, it called the doctor and said, Dr. White, stat. And she ran out of the room. I'm a goner. 25 years old, and I'm a goner. And so I'm back emotionally where I was in heaven. You know, I'm dead. It's all but the writing on the death certificate here, the way she looked and the way she ran. And Dr. White come in, he did the ultrasound. He looked at me, he said, Peggy, this is the worst thing imaginable. You have got internal bleeding filling your entire abdominal cavity, clear up to your chest. We got to get you in emergency surgery right now. They told me later it was the biggest dual pregnancy the hospital ever saw. He said, you're famous around here. Doctors will probably be sticking their head in the door to look at you because the twins was growing and thriving so well. And I don't be famous because I lost my twins. And so I went home mourning the twins' death with the knowledge I was in heaven. And now I'm faced with a decision. What do I do about getting pregnant? Because if I get pregnant again, I'll probably die and I won't get to raise my kids and I won't get another chance like I was just given. I couldn't tell anybody what happened because it sounds completely ridiculous. It makes no sense. It doesn't sound logical. I don't want to sound like my crazy sister who goes in now mental hospitals. And so I was pregnant again. The next month I was pregnant again. And I thought, am I going to die when I get to be almost 2 months, like with the twins? Am I going to die before that, or after, when am I going to die? I just thought I could not choose. Like, how do you get a second chance at getting to raise your sons and get pregnant again and be in that position? I wanted a baby so bad. I couldn't choose. So here I am pregnant. And I had lost the tube in that pregnancy. So I was pregnant from the left side. And I'm almost 2 months pregnant. We go to a family reunion. And so the twins was at Easter, and now this is the end of June. And we're in line. It's a big family. It's my ex's mom's side of the family. And we're in this line for everybody to eat, and here's all this food on the tables of the pavilion. All of a sudden I hear a child crying. And I start asking, do you hear a child crying? Do you hear it? No. And they just ignore me. They're looking at the food. Like, I hear a child crying. Nobody cared. I'm like, well, I can't not care. I got to find this child. And so I walk past all this line of people looking at the food, and I walk out in this field. And I was like, okay, I don't hear it now. So what do I do? And there's this quiet for a minute. And then there's a child out here. And something says, go check that tall grass. I heard a voice say, go check that tall grass. I'm like, that tall grass? How could there be anything in that tall grass? So I walk over to the tall grass. I followed where it led and went over to the grass. And I looked down, and there was a little boy, maybe 2-3 years old. And I just seen the back of his shirt, and he's barely twitching. And I reached down, and he's face down in the water, he's drowning. And I reached down by the back of his shirt, and I pick him up, and he lands on his feet, and he stands there, and he looks at me like he's seen a ghost. And I thought, but the moment I picked him up, I felt I miscarried. I knew I miscarried. And so I'm standing him up, and he's looking at me like he's seen a ghost. There's water's flooding down his face. So I thought, oh, he's probably got so much water that it's like distorted. And so he runs over to the end of the pavilion, his mom and dad standing there, and he's pointing at me, telling a story. And they're like, what? What? Well, I don't understand, you know? I'm like, people, I'm standing right here. Why can't they see me? I'm probably from, me to you, maybe a little further. And right here, but I had to go to the bathroom because you miscarried. And so I go get my plate and sit with my kids under the tree away from everybody. I said, I miscarried, so you get done eating this, go home. And I didn't get pregnant again, and for 7 years, and we were going through divorce. And my ex was very mad that I was pregnant because it's child support, And then I had another tubal, but my doctor knew to listen to me from the very first time I called and said, I'm having pain. He got me right in surgery, and he says that he would never do that again. He says, you taught me a lesson, listen to my patients over my tests. But with that little boy, so that was also in 1986. In 2010, I was a counselor, and this great big guy, he's huge, comes in, he sits down in a chair and he's talking. And I said, that last name, I recognize it. I said, did you go to those family reunions? He's like, yeah. And I told that story for the first time. This little boy, he was, nobody heard him but me, and I picked him up and he just looked at me funny, and his parents didn't see me and I didn't think much of it. And he goes, that was you? That was my little brother. He swears this day an angel saved him. And so, as I'm, starting to write my book, and I just started telling my memories chronological order. And because after the NDE with the twins, strange things started happening that I could not understand. I never heard of near-death experience, nor did I hear of near-death or NDE after effects. What happens to you sometimes after NDE? Stuff just started happening. And so after the twins, I lost them, and then I had that miscarriage. Because that was just a miscarriage. It wasn't tubal, but later a fertility specialist said all your miscarriages were ectopic pregnancies that naturally dissolved in the tube. And I think that must be rare, but I've had a lot of those. They just naturally dissolved. So after I lost the twins, there was that little boy in the ditch. That thing happened. That was weird. Well, not long after that little boy, it wasn't much time at all, that we were driving from Gallipolis, Ohio through Cheshire, Ohio, headed home. And our three little boys in the back seat, my husband was driving. It was starting to get, starting to be evening time. And I'm in the passenger side, and we're driving home. All of a sudden, this never happened before or since. I said, pull over right now. And he pulled over, and I jumped out of the car. And as I'm running to this house, I thought, I don't know why I'm going there, but I'm going to have to, when they answer the doors, I'm sorry, I have the wrong house. But I just, something says, go there right now. So I knock on the door, but instead of having to say that, it was someone I knew. It was my brother John's ex-wife, Chris. I said, what are you doing here? And she said, I'm babysitting my nephew for my sister. She rents this house. I said, where's your nephew? And she's in the bedroom playing. I said, take me to him right now. And I went running through that house, and he's in that bedroom with the door shut, choking on Easter basket grass. And I grabbed him under her arm, and I run to the bathroom, and I don't know how I knew to do this, but it worked. I started running the water in the tub, got my hands wet, and I held him down, upside down, and kept reaching to grab that grass out of his mouth and throat. And she swears to this day, if she hadn't been there, he would have died, because she wouldn't know what to do. All she was doing was looking in the phone book to try to find a number for her sister, say I can't handle it. She's has a learning disability. We're best friends. We've been since we were 16. But so I went back in the car, and my husband Jeff was looking at me like, and I told him briefly what happened, and he's driving and would look at me. I don't know, because he knows this just happened with this little boy in the ditch, right? And now this happened. He'd look at me again. I said, I don't know. I don't have answers. And so some months went by, and Oprah was new at the time, and she had people when I was walking through the living room to start dinner, and I seen the TV. What is she talking about? And had people in there saying they died and come back. I didn't catch the word NDE, but that's what they're talking about. And I'm like, my middle sister is a compulsive liar. My mom said she started lying from the time she learned to talk. And so I grew up hating lies because they hurt people, usually me. I was usually the one that got hurt from her lies, and I hated liars. And I was like, oh my God, how stupid do they think people are? How ridiculous. I rolled my eyes. I started walking the TV, and all of a sudden it was like something hit me in the face. and stopped me. And I'm like, I remembered what happened with the twins being in heaven. I was like, oh my God, that was real. And something yelled at me. Now this makes me sound like a mental person because I felt like one that minute. Something's yelling, it couldn't have happened. But it did happen. It couldn't have, but it did. And I think to this day, I still struggle with, is this stuff real? Was I really in heaven? Was that really Jesus? How can this stuff happen? The words that come out of my mouth, because I sat my husband down after supper that night and I said, I have something to tell you. And I had sent the boys to the room. I said, play in there, shut the door, go back and talk to your dad. And I told him about the NDE, the heaven experience, the tunnel, all of it. And he looked at me. He said, I know how it sounds, but I know you, and I know you're telling me the truth. But I didn't catch the word near death experience. I go to the library and try to find it. We didn't have the internet. What do I do with this? I didn't know what to do with it. I never connected what happened with the boy in the ditch and that boy with Easter, but I didn't connect that this could be an NDE after effect, of course, decades later, when I started hearing these things. I had even read a couple NDE books before I started saying, was mine an NDE? Because I don't sound like anybody else's? Do I dare say that? And I wanted to go to an IONS group in Columbus for a year before I finally did. I was afraid I would embarrass my children that lived in Columbus. My boys were grown. So I asked their permission. Like, would you think I was crazy? It was almost like, I think maybe like somebody coming out there gay, like coming out of the closet, because I was an investigator for Children's Services. I was a mental health social worker at a mental hospital, okay? I was a counselor at a maximum security prison for women. Do I want to start talking crazy? You know, I had tried my whole life to be sane because my oldest sister was mentally disabled. Like, I never wanted to sound crazy, look crazy. Like, all five of us kids, you know, well, the four, there's five of us. We never wanted to be looked at like my sister. And so, you know, I started writing my book and something just told me, just go from chronological order, you know, first memory all the way through. Don't judge it. That'll be somebody else's job to figure it out. So I give it to you guys to figure out because I would let you have the book. I say I read the part one of this, which is the first half of the book online if you want to listen to it. There's plenty of podcasts of me on there. I think you have the Anthony Sheen one on the inner thing for tonight. So you guys got questions?
And in the back of the book, you have some really great poems
Yes.
that you wanted to read.
The
I personally cannot read them out loud. Too emotional, but you can read that one about when you found the wildlife.
Okay.
That's a really good one. It puts all of her experience in succinct. You get it all in one without all the drama, without all the details, but the details are very good. I know you didn't talk about your, when you had your first NDE.
Right.
If you wanted to talk,
Okay.
you still have,
Okay.
till 4:30.
Okay.
Or 4:20.
After the twin NDE in 1985, after the boy in the ditch and after the boy with the Easter basket grass, went to my husband's family, his mom and dad's. They just had a big get together. And this was after that, of course, that reunion. And I come from a really poor family. I come from family that a lot of people would look at and call trash. My mom just had no morals. My grandma would send a church bus for us kids and stuff. And we'd move around a lot and we'd find a church to go to. And so I don't know, they just didn't, we had to get married for my first son, you know, say big Catholic family, 12 kids. And some of them didn't want us to get married. I was just never good enough. I wasn't good enough in my family to exist, and I wasn't good enough in their family to exist. And I think when you grow up like that, you just allow it. That's just your way in life. That's who you are in life. You're somebody for people to knock out cold. You're somebody for people to spit on and look down. And so that's just my role. And I didn't really, and my husband, he didn't stick up for me. So we were at this get together, his family. Nobody could say, I'm sorry you lost the twins. I'm sorry you lost this next baby. at the reunion. And I thought, so I just had to get away from them. They have these big parties, drinking, everybody laughing, carrying on. And I went outside and sat in the grass, and I remember the dew being wet. And I looked up at the night sky, and it's full of stars. It was so pitch black, and all these stars. And I said, God, if they can't care about their nieces and nephews dying, there's no way they're going to care about me. Like, I don't have a chance here. And I just let go. And I looked up the stars and I just let go. All of a sudden, it was like a movie trailer played from front to back of The Drowning at 5 years old. And it like took over me, and I sat up like, did I drown when I was little? Like, this whole memory come back. And so I went to my mom's house the next day and I had two questions. Did I drown when I was little, and how did you find me? And she's like, yeah, you did. So that drowning was, me and my brother went down to the pond. My mom said, go ahead on down, we'll be on after a bit. And he took my board I was floating on. It caused me to drown. It was all out of body. There was no heaven or tunnel, none of that. No, but there was a guide. I could hear a guide. The first thing I heard was a woman's voice as I hovered over the pond. She says, don't go yet. If they find you soon, you might go back. I thought, I'm 5 years old. I'm a little sassy brat. And I was like, go back. That's not how death works. I know that much. 5 years old. Yeah. We don't go back. And I thought, I don't think I have to listen to this voice, whoever this woman is. So I'm gonna be hover a while, and then I'm gonna go. So I flew over the highway. I went run yard, play with kids. They couldn't see me. I went in and out of houses. And then at some point, I'm back over the pond. My mom and sister have now come down because they're sitting on the bed sheet, and I could feel their thoughts. And my brother's on the other side of the thing, still doing his laps on my board. And next thing I know, I wake up. Now, I do not remember the rescue. My mom told me later, when I realized you weren't there, I said, John, where did you see her last? And she's go where you saw her last. I keep diving down until you find her. And then, because I wake up and I'm coughing up water down his back. And I'm dangling. And I see my mom and sister Terry walking up ahead to the house. And he don't like me barfing on his back. So he's, Mom, can I put her down now? And her and my sister both turn at the same time because I see as I'm dangling. And then Mama, like sigh of relief, yeah. And they run to the house. My brother set me down, and off he goes. I'm left on the road because when I was hovering over the pond, I got a knowing my family didn't love me. Like, oh, I didn't know that. And then I heard a very distinct voice say, God sends children here to be loved. That's why he sends them here. I'm like, wait a minute. You know, I'm like some sassy little kid. You let me know my family don't love me, and then you tell me that, and you know that's why you send kids here, but I'm not loved. So now I'm standing on this road with this knowledge a 5-year-old shouldn't have, that my family don't love me, and they just confirmed it by just leaving me here. And I'm sick from the pond water in my belly. I'm weak, and so I think I don't know. I didn't know the word suicide, but I thought I'm gonna go back what I was just doing. I'm gonna go back to that pond because I was flying. I was looking for kids to play with. And it was great. Why would I walk up to a house that family don't love me? And so I just took a couple steps back to the pond. I said, it really hurts at first, but I'm gonna fight it this time. And as I just took a couple steps, the voice I've heard before, the female voice, I now see her, and it is an angel. It is no wings. It is a woman made of light. And she has this gown with these wide sleeves at the end. And she says, no, don't. I said, why not? You know, they don't love me. And she says, well, you'll have a lot of love someday. I said, where do I find it? And she points right towards Belfry. And I had a lot of trouble telling my story when I first started talking about it. And my husband and I was working on the pipeline. It was before I wrote my book, or even thought about writing a book. And they had to shut down the whole job. He was the welder and the steward, and I was his helper. And they had to shut down the whole job for the week. So we know we're not getting paid. And we fly to Denver so I can share my story on NDE Panel IONS conference, my first one I went to. And I was too shy to tell my story because I thought, do I tell my story? Do I read my poems? So I read my poems. So I'll just read you one real quick. They're in the back of the book, so I won't read them all. Well, here's the poem. I shouldn't have gone out to the deep. I'm sinking, but no one can hear a peep. Screaming underwater does no good. It's too late to do what I know I should. The pain in my throat is more than I can bear. I can't get up to get some air. I have to stop and think what to do. I need to stop and stew. Suddenly I am fine. It is all right. I was splashing and putting up a fight. The water is shiny green now and full of light. The fish are bumping into me. What a beautiful sight. I know I have died. Up I go to the top of the trees as I look down below. I can see so far away. I don't think this is where I want to stay. There must be a lot to do, I bet, and someone says, don't go yet. I listen intently, but her voice is all I hear. I don't see her, but I know she is near. If they find you soon, you might go back. I don't see how, for wisdom I lack. Before I can decide which way to go, I am hanging over his shoulder with my head hanging low. Water pours from my mouth and out my nose. I am sick as a dog, but off he goes. He runs in the house and leaves me alone. I want to go back. My life is my own. I can do what I want, and I want to do that. I was about to fly and never come back. I hear her voice again, but I see her now too. She tells me, someday love will be there for you. I make her promise before she goes. I head on home and go to bed. If anyone was glad I was okay, they never said. So, but the Will of the Wildflowers in there, and then Catching a Ride, it was about an OBE ad when I was kidnapped and raped at 16. And then I have a poem about my heel, which is when I was 17, when I started talking, how I felt before. And then 7 years later, it was the twins. I will tell you, I'll read the twins one, and then I'll be done for questions. The pain is starting to fade. I think I am going to be sick. I can't seem to move my hands. My head drops to my chest. I am about to pass out. I am shooting up to space. I am traveling so far away. I am so sorry, my children. I don't want to leave you. I am afraid. I know there's no turning back. I am in heaven. I think I am alone. I am still me, but I can't see me. I am seeing someone. Who are they? I know who you are, sitting up front and center. I won't go. You can't make me. I have kids to raise. I am not the boss here. I must humble myself before you. If they will be better off, I will stay. If not, I beg you to return. I see now, it's not your fault. I am here. It's all mine. Deep sorrow overwhelms me. Who else will teach them about you? I am back. I feel my hands, I feel my body, then my feet. I hear the nurse speak. What the hell was that? I ask. How can it be? I was dead. Now I am me. Guys have questions? Comments?
That are new near-death experiences. We've had lots of other people here, and they've explained to us that it takes years, particularly children that have had near-death experiences. It takes years for them to process that information and then be able to articulate it. And even at that, it's a struggle because what they may or may not have seen in the other realm, they can't put it into words. So as much as it may seem a little strange, that it took her how many years? Almost
My whole life.
your whole life. And she still sometimes questions. And that's totally normal. And I think that's what helps people who have had near-death experiences. When they affiliate themselves with others, they get some sort of validation. And so anyway, if you have questions, I think Peggy would like to hear
Your
answer
thoughts?
questions.
That's, yeah.
We have about 20 minutes.
I've read and listened and everything, but I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on the biggest difference between what you experienced and the dream.
Okay, so the question, and I'm going to repeat it because my voice is loud and the Zoom people can't hear it, or you can repeat it. But her question.
What's the difference between an NDE and a dream?
Right.
Yeah.
I can't tell you any dream I've ever had in much detail. Maybe I'd really stretched my thought, like, oh, maybe I had a weird dream. So a school bus and went off the hill. That's about it. And the most thing is, why would I dream? When you being pushed into a wheelchair, emergency room, and you're in severe pain, and you're afraid for twins, why'd you suddenly take a nap and dream? And how do you, I don't know if we dream that quick. Like, I think it takes time, to fall into a dream. And how, the thing is with me personally, is that NDE saved my life. That NDE made me tell my doctor, I'm not going home, because I knew I was about dead because of that NDE. I was just in heaven accepting it. And I don't know why I would dream that. I've come to believe that, because I had a lot of time to think, I don't understand this, I don't understand that, is I've come to believe that when you die and leave your body, you leave your brain too. So you're out of your body and you're out of your brain. And when you come back, these memories never fade. Now you can repress them, like the drowning I repressed. And I think things that happened triggered that to happen, where I remembered the drowning that night. And, so
That's good.
It also
And- okay.
seems like when you have one of these experiences, there was a condition that eventually turned up, you're not losing. Seems like there was always lesson or something that you learned in that experience that then had an outcome here. Is that right?
after the NDE, I started more and more feeling changed. Because when I was in a bright white light, before I saw anything, for anything that happened, I thought, gosh, what do I do with my life? I didn't speak up. I always kept abuse quiet. I didn't think anybody cared. And it was embarrassing. Your parents treat you like that, your siblings. I don't want anybody to know. I don't want anybody to find out. And I tried to talk about it, and people look at me, down on me, like it's my fault or something wrong with me, or it's just like bad things to talk about. And it was just a whole process. Everything took time to process it and be able to put it in a place where I could have words to, and when I survived and come back, the show come out, I would watch that and like, why am I so drawn to this? So that's why I got a couple NDE movies or books. And why does this just resonate with me? It took a while for me to like, wait a minute, is this what I had? Because it felt this big right here, so deep buried in me. And more I talk about it, and it wasn't until he and I got married, we've been married 27 years now, a few years after so I'll go back. After the NDE with the twins, I started taking life more seriously. And I remembered the promise I made to God when I turned 18, that I wouldn't forget about the child abuse. I would do something to help abuse kids. And I ended up fostering 60 children, and we adopted 10. And I was a child abuse investigator. And like I say, I had a knack for that child abuse stuff. I knew stuff. Like, I got confessions. The cops would get jealous. My coworkers would get jealous. Like, and I wasn't like big headed with it. I did 75% of all the cases, because nobody wanted to report to anybody but me. They said when Peggy gets a case, she sinks her teeth in it. She doesn't let go till she knows that kid's safe. And I didn't know how I had a knack for it. Now that I'm 63 years old and I look back at all, I think the drowning and the NDE at 25, I think when we have an NDE, we tap into this other realm where there's knowledge, just like I hovered over the field. And I just knew all of a sudden something was telling me what was wrong with Jeremy. And Jeremy, he works for Department of Defense. He's an accountant manager and stuff. He's like very, sane person. And he said to me, Mom, recently, he said, I heard you praying. He says, but I also saw you. I was hovered over you like a drone. I was like, Jeremy, that was the NDE. He says, I wouldn't say that. He's going to have his own processing. It's going to take his own time. He's going to have his own journey. So.
And yes, the answer to that question has been that most people that have an NDE come back with some sort of guilt. I think Sandra can attest that they have a gift that they were given, but they don't always recognize it. They stumble along through life going, well, like, hey, like, what is this? Why do I hear these voices, and why do I sense that someone's in trouble? But that was a gift that they were given. So that's what we've learned through the years of listening to NDEs. Yes.
I want to add, and I'll try not to take my time too long. I've also drowned. I drowned 60 feet underwater. Costa Rica, my floating the light. That was my second time.
You might have to be a little louder because we're trying to
Yeah,
capture it on here.
I'm trying to collect my thoughts.
Okay, I know. Yeah, right.
So,
You
and
drowned at 6?
uh,
What, were you
I
6?
drowned 15 years old in Costa Rica.
Oh,
I never found bottom. God did tell me not to go in the water. I did.
Yeah.
Yelp. But yeah, drowning at 5 is what has given me clairvoyant gifts.
okay.
There's an out of body experience where your higher self is able to navigate, and it sounds like when you were 25 and you're experiencing miscarriages, you weren't accepting of the higher self perspective, and higher self took you in, which may feel like a dream state sometimes. Clairvoyant gifts are very across the board. So I'm empathic. I feel things through my body as well as can hear and can see. I can have visions of past lives that come up now. But yeah, some of what you're saying is there's an esoteric gift there on top of the trauma. And the more that you work through the trauma, and you found that more of these gifts come out.
All I know is I don't control it. If there's somebody laying out here, I might just go right out the door. I don't know. Are you okay? But I don't plan it. I don't control it. Like if somebody comes to me and says, tell me my fortune, well, heck if I know, but if something gets pressed upon me, somebody needs help right now, or, just a weird word will come up or something, huh? Yeah, motorcycle wreck. He was with me a few years ago and we come into our town and it said road closed, accident. And he jumps out of the car to go see if we can go on down far enough to go to our road. The moment he jumps out of the car, I knew right now. And I couldn't wait for him to come back. I should have gone out and went and talked to the cops, but I was too embarrassed. I didn't trust this. And so as soon as he got out of the car, I said, it was a motorcycle accident, wasn't it? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, they think it was just a guy, but there's a woman on the back. And this is how I get. I get very excitable when I get like that. And there's a girl that got thrown and they don't know it. I gotta get on there and find her because they don't know she's down there. He's like, we can't go down there. And I bugged him all night. I called my friend that lives down the area. I knew where exactly where it was. She said, oh yeah, the cops are all down here. They got blocked up. They go. And I wish I would have went because the next day her son calls and said, I think my mom was on that motorcycle with that guy. Can you look? And here she was up in the weeds. I knew exactly where she was. And so that's one time I did not go. But other times I just hear a little scuff noise, like right after the grass, the Easter basket grass boy. There was another incident, it was sitting on the deck, and I heard a very slight scuff noise. You wouldn't pay any attention, but that noise I heard, it's like, go now, go now, go now. I went running up our hill and here a car had hit a tree and the two in the back got ejected way down the cliff into our creek. And the two up front, there was 4 men. They were laying with their heads with broken necks, laying their heads on the dash. And my husband, said, get down, call this. He went with me. He's like, because he learned to listen, like what's going on with her. And we got this, they life flight in, 2 died en route, but they got him back. And like, nobody heard that, and a lot of cars, wasn't busy back then. It just looked like it was parked right in front of a tree. It was off the road, like probably people, if they would have went by, they wouldn't have thought nothing. But just, yeah, I don't understand any of it.
So
I should.
it sounds like, Tyson, you are more aware of
Yeah, I studied,
studying.
I'm highly autistic, so I studied where you watched all the videos on NDEs. I can't watch them because the emotional response that I get from them. I'm still working through my trauma, any other traumatic experiences in my life. But I've studied more on what the clairvoyant gifts are, how they work, how they operate, and even to the point that there's people right now in the spiritual realm that are trying to force their gifts, and they're now finding themselves struggling and out of sorts because you can't force the gift. But just to know in your own awareness that there's some level of clairvoyant gift there, that something's going to happen, you hear something that somebody else doesn't hear. Saying that out loud too, because that's where it comes into play. Does it feel like a dream? Feel like reality? And the more you can understand from what vantage point they're at. So personally, I can see when my higher self is talking to me, when God or source is talking to me, when angels are present, et cetera, and trying to adapt that to my life has been a struggle. I was also raised Catholic. Father had 12 brothers and sisters. I grew up in a large family. We were a very loving family, luckily, but yeah, it wasn't part of what I learned.
How do they feel about your gifts? How they feel about your gifts?
They're trying to wrap their head around it, and because I'm such a studier, I've started to put together the missing parts of the Bible. I figured out when they changed and manipulated the Bible, and that since everything came from Hindu to begin with, Christ consciousness and Krishna is just another spirit form, Jesus, that came first. And the more that we stop arguing about religion and see that it's all a blending of that, but the gifts that they wanted to keep from us is what makes us powerful, which makes us help another. And the more society can keep people down, it's blatant with the taxes and what's going on with our political system. But gone back enough and studied enough to figure out when that manipulation occurred. And for me, I'm a truth seeker, I hate lies, much like you said, I can't deal with them at all. How's my family adapting? I try to not put anyone, anybody that can't handle it anymore. I tend to make like little people's minds go say like I need weeks before I can talk to you again if I get too deep on them. Trying to meet people.
That's hard.
Well, I think
When
most
you
of
talk
us
too deep
in this
with it.
room, believe it or not, most of us.
Little pieces.
Yeah, that's a big space that like I feel like everybody's experienced some level with nothing else, and you're just here because you're dealing with. Did I die? Did I go into light? And what are you trying to process as that's coming in? Because everybody's gifts are going to be different. And the more that you have, I think, the more difficult it is to integrate to find people. So for me, recently, I found shamans. Shamans are energy workers. Shamans are astral workers. Shamans are healers in the physical sense of the word to do shadow work or trauma work, and literally pulling the shadow work in the stone in my hand, because this is allowing me to not take that weight of nothing else. And even if it's like a placebo effect, I know the meaning behind the stone and the energy behind the stone. I'm looking for shamans and mystics in my bloodline in Africa and compel their bloodlines. It's hard to find that.
There's the NDE, and then there's how people interpret it afterwards. If they go to some audience groups and somebody might say, hey, come over here, let me tell you, you're a psychic, or you're a medium, or you're a challenge. And then so they go that route. Or other people, they might turn and they're trying to find everything in their Bible. And they have to read a Bible verse for everything they experience. There's an NDE that's got pure experience. And then we come back in this society, in this world, and we try to make sense. And however you make sense of it is how you're supposed to make sense of it. Right.
Like, even moving forward, my mom was devout Catholic, and she's head of the Franciscan order, that Catholic. But finding the mystics that she didn't know about is helping her understand, like, the mystics in Catholicism were having the vision, we're speaking to God, we're bringing information, etc. And it's like, when you can accept from your zeitgeist that's possible, why could that happen? That's my job, is like, I can just say the same thing out loud and look crazy, or try to put the pieces of a puzzle together for somebody. I don't push, that's my mom, I don't want you to go backwards. But also be nice if my mom can understand it.
Yeah. Right.
Some people come back with their NDEs and they think their sole purpose is to sell books. Some people think their sole purpose is to exaggerate so much that they get more views than anybody else. Some people come back, everybody interprets it and does with it what they will. I've interviewed over 400 guests on my NDE TV YouTube channel. And I wanted to do it because I felt over here, you could only be New Age. And they didn't want anything Christian. And over here, the Christians didn't want anything New Age. And I thought, I'm gonna have everybody, because I come from an investigator, counselor standpoint, and I want truth. I want to figure this stuff out. I have questions. I don't have answers. I just have a lot of questions. And the only way I feel I'm going to get answers for myself is to open up and just let everybody come in, share your story, this might resonate with her, but not with her, and then the next one might with that one, and so I try not to.
Well, we do have, some other people in here like you that are researching, and Tyson and Maryland. They're wanting to learn as much as they can, and that's what this whole group is about. Any other questions from anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
I started studying metaphysics back in 2013, and along the way, I became a medium and such. But part of my goal is to try and teach people about these other realms without using the religious terms. And I'm wondering if, like, these places where we're going, if we can define it as a different dimension, but like, I've not had an NDE personally, but I remember one morning I had one of my very unusual vivid dreams about being in the ocean and in the waves, and it was rough, but I was okay. But that same day, my older sister drowned in the ocean. And what I've been told and what I've tried to discern from this is that it was a form of collective consciousness, that somehow we were in that same dimension together. And if we could just each open our hearts and minds to the fact that it's not contained somewhere in the book, in any book. It's something what we have to find inside of us and reaching out to that source, whatever we want to call it, that energetic source. So it's awesome to hear from you.
Very well said. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Are there any questions on Zoom? Let's see. I'm sorry to all of you on Zoom that maybe can't hear the questions. They're great questions from our group. Do any of you have any questions? Nancy? Do you have a question? You can't hear her. Oh, Nancy. No.
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Yes, you were on mute. Okay.
I apologize. I actually don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you, Peggy, for coming and sharing your story. I appreciate it
Thank
so much.
Watching.
Thank you, Nancy, for joining us each time. You're our Zoom #1 Zoom fan. Thank you.
I love it.
Helma, did you have a question? Esther, did you have a question? No. All right. Back to you, folks. You have a question? Anyone? Anyone have a question we have about 10 minutes, maybe. Yes, lady. Go ahead, lady.
Okay.
You.
Okay.
I understand that was very easy. And you have kids. And I do want to know what makes you want to have more kids, knowing that your childhood was difficult. If you have 3 kids already, if something happened to you
Yes.
and you keep wanting to have more kids, just want to understand.
Okay. After my drowning, when I was left alone and I saw the angel, I went on up to bed and I realized I have to be my own mother now. Nobody's going to take care of me but me. And I felt like I had become my own mother, and I got my little wet bikini, got on my nightgown, crawled in bed, got myself a nursery rhyme book, and I flipped through and I stopped on the one that said the old woman lived in a shoe, had so many children, she didn't know what to do. And something just happened, me staring at them beds in a row, that I like saw my future. I thought, maybe when the angel said you'll have a lot of love someday, maybe she meant that I would have a lot of children. Maybe I'm supposed to love unloved kids like me. Maybe I won't have my own kids. Maybe I'll have orphans. Maybe I'll have an orphanage. All this went through my head. Of course, I put all this stuff away. Weird things happened for a while after the drowning. Like weird things happened after the NDE at 25 years old. And so, I had the childhood I had, and I promised myself when I turned 18 that I would do something for abused kids. After the twin NDE, I started taking life more seriously and thinking about, I made this promise to God at 18. And after being out of high school for 10 years, and I was a really bad student, I went to college. I aced everything. And I wanted to be a child abuse investigator, and I got a job doing that. And then, I started the foster care and adoption. And we had 9 kids, 8 of them was girls. And one Christmas I said, I want to fix up the basement because it used to be our boys used it as a pool table room, their friends and stuff. And they were all grown. So now we have our girls. And so we went in debt and got these beautiful off-white canopy beds and got the roughly tops, different colors, and painted up purple and this flower border. And of course, it was all a surprise for Christmas. So they weren't allowed down there to see what was going on. And I stepped back and Margaret was done. And I remembered that old woman living in a shoe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
I'm the old woman.
could there really be something to this? And then I remembered that my ex had said, our property is shaped like a boot. My God, you're so funny.
And where we live in Ohio, if you follow the eastern along the Ohio River, our county is shaped like a boot.
So she's the old lady that lives in a boot. And she's had 60 plus children in her care.
And I wouldn't have known how to be a therapeutic foster parent. And the work with the kids I did with child abuse, if I hadn't experienced being unloved and abused of all kinds of forms and understand what it's like, even when they have really bad, they gave me the worst kids because I was so good at it. They gave me the worst, worst kids. And the prosecutor said one day, Peggy took our hardest kids and turned their lives around. As I just knew what they were going through. When you're acting bad, something's going on. Even as adults, we start acting bad, like, what's the matter, Deb? You know? What's eating you?
Yeah.
Something's eating
They'll
you.
get our attention, children will, one way or the other, either behaving badly or good. And, but they need that. But that's a good question. You know, she's, you would think, yeah. Yeah.
You have to help them. Nobody else, or many people can do that, and you could, but you were there.
Yeah, and I was the kind of abused kid that kept it quiet. So you have to know the signs. And, you know, and plus having the after effects. And I didn't know that at the time. But I look back and I think I had that sixth sense too. Just kind of drawn to things. And like I said, I got really good confession. I got confessions from people. Like people were shocked. Like this one time they come in my office when I first started and they said, we're going to go interview this guy. He's a school teacher for a Christian school. But he also had another job in a public school. And this kid was missing, 15-year-old kid was missing. And he was one of the people out helping look for him. But the weird thing was, it was all over the news, is that teacher's house was burnt down and they found his car burnt down. What's going on? He wasn't talking, the kid wasn't talking. And so they come to my desk and I didn't really much know what was going on with the case. I said, come on, we were told to take you with us. And here's these big cops, you know, investigators and stuff, and they're prior military and police. And I'm sitting in the back seat and they're not talking to me because I'm just a dumb little tiny girl, you know. And we get there and they go trucking in there and the guy's coming out in his orange and a suit and his shackles and they in the jail cell, bring him out front and they're like, you're gonna tell us. And he's like, I ain't talking to you. That's, you know, cussing and stuff. And so it didn't last 2 minutes. And, okay, we're out of here. Like, we're going back home. And I watched him leave and I said, I don't know what their problem is, but can I talk to you for a minute? He goes, okay. And they're like, come on, Peg. You're like, no, wait, give me a minute. And I sat down, I said, I'm a tape recorder. And I said, is it okay? I have really bad memory, which I do, short-term memory. And long-term is out of all the charts, but, and I said, is it okay if he said, yeah, go ahead. I was like, what happened? Like, do you want to make a child abuse report? Do you know something about this boy that was being abused that maybe you guys don't want to tell? Long story short, he became in love with a boy. He was sexually abusing him. He would have other kids come over so it didn't look suspicious. So he could be with this boy and he was in love with him, having sexual things with him. And the boy was having some problems at home and he came up with the idea, well, let's just run away together. And he was out there helping the family look for this kid. You know, didn't know that he was, you know it. And so they end up burned down the house and then his car to remove all trace of where the boy had been. And so I said, okay, you know, I wrote down a report. We're going to investigate, you know, this abuse. You say his boy's being abused. Walked out of there. I said, what do you say? What do you say? And I, full confession.
Full confession. What happened to the boy?
I mean, he was with his parents and he had to go to counseling for.
Oh, and
the
he
guy
kept
went
it
to prison.
secret. He was keeping it.
I went and interviewed him.
Okay.
He told me some things he was comfortable in telling.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I mean, I got the confession from the guy, so.
Yeah. Okay. See how it is a hard book to read because there's a lot of stuff, but all that Peggy endured and lived through, she has really turned it around like the wildflower. I think that's a good one to read. Can we read it?
Okay.
The
After-
Will of a Wildflower.
after-
And that is her.
That's what I got named.
That is perfect. That sums up how she became what she is today.
After my drowning, about a week later, my dad took my mom and us 5 kids, which was a normal thing to do, go fishing at Vito Lake, just a few miles from our house. I was bored with fishing. Once we got there, they started getting out there fishing holes and stuff. Because I see more of fish than I cared to. When I drowned, they were bumping into me. And so I felt led. Now, this is the beginning of feeling led that I didn't know till I was in my 50s what this all meant. And so I'll just read, well, I'll maybe have to explain a little bit. So I felt led, and I thought, like, come over here. And I'm like, I don't want to go over there. And it was all like, over here's this beautiful lake and these wildflowers growing. But over here, it was like a storm had come and then dried up. It's like cracked mud and leaves and sticks. It was gross. Like, I don't want to go over there. It's like, come over here. And only thing over there alive was one flower. It was growing out from under a rock. And I remind you, I'm 5 years old. And I sat down like, how did you grow here? It's like I had a friend. How did you grow here out from under a rock in this big ugly place? And so here's the poem that I wrote about this. And I knew when I started writing my book, there's only one name I could call this, and it was The Will of Wildflower, because of this experience. Can a wildflower talk? Because it did one day when I went for a walk. I was just a poor plain little child, alone until I saw it growing wild. It grew out from under a rock in a dry, ugly place. Its joy and beauty I couldn't erase. It danced and clapped with the wind. Somehow that flower became my friend. It didn't speak or shout, but somehow it let me know what life is all about. It held a secret that helped it grow. If I listened quietly, it would let me know. It showed me a vision, that's what it did, of women discussing flowers that grow bright and big. Then I saw girls in ribbons and bows. They were loved and given a lot of clothes. Those girls were like the big fancy flowers, all dolled up and needing showered. But they weren't like this wildflower, you see. It had a strong will just to be free. I thanked the flower as I went on my way, yet it had one more insight to say. Someday, too, I would dance in the wind. Gifts of beauty and strength God would send. Neither riches nor pampered would my fortune be, but the will of a wildflower grows inside of me. And that has been kind of, I guess you say, my saving grace, is that I believe from the drowning, I was giving something. Because of that communication with a flower at 5 years old. I look back, it wasn't then I thought that, it was, many, many decades later and looking back, because people would say, how did you survive? If you read about my child abuse, how did you survive that? How did you do this? How did you, I don't know. And I have come to think, because of the gifts that you're given, we're given this strong will, we're given this insight, we're given this strength, that when really bad things happen, we can fall on it. And I think we all have it. And I think, I look back, how I believe this is true, when at 5th grade, I was the type kid that I would daydream and stare out the window. I could not listen to anything the teacher said. It was boring. And I was just in my own little world. That's why my grades were so bad. And I was so behind, I could never catch up. But one day, our health teacher in 5th grade was Mr. Cooper, was talking about failure to thrive. He said, babies in orphanages. Okay, look back, and I think back, I clicked to the drowning about the babies being unloved, the kids being unloved. Babies in orphanages can will themselves to die. They can be perfectly healthy, nurses there to take care of them, but if they're not loved, they can just will themselves to die. And he said, like old people in nursing homes, their kids quit coming to see them, and they just will themselves to die. I wanted to jump up and stand on my desk and start screaming, we got to do something. How can we have people dying because they're not loved? Is that the kind of world we live in? Are you telling me, I get all animated and loud in my head. And And so when I started looking back at all these memories and things, I think that was the first time. I remember feeling like, I don't know if I even really knew what a social worker was. I felt like a social worker grew inside of me, 5th grade, when I felt that strong conviction. And I thought, okay, I can't do anything. I'm just a kid, but as soon as I can, I'm going to do something. Well, it was, that was 5th grade, 7th grade. We had moved and a friend of mine was a candy striper in a nursing home. Oh, I got to do that. So I did that. And then a lady up the young mother needed a babysitter, 50 cents an hour, like 50 hours a week. I'm in, right? And I took every home ec class and cooking and parenting. And I just like, I want to be a mother. That's all I wanted to be. So I don't know. Just like when we look back at our lives, it seems like to me that when we're born, we're given like this 5,000 piece box of puzzle. And as soon as we're born, it's like God just opens the box and scatters the wings and says, go live your life. Because as you get older, you start to see all the pieces coming together. You know, from the nursery rhyme, you know, live in a shoe, to I'm staying there in her basement looking, wait a minute, this is just like, you know, here's all these beds lined up and I didn't plan it this way. And all these things, as you get older, it just seems like you can see the
Pieces
puzzle
coming together.
all coming together that was meant to be all along.
Mhm. That's right. Well, I do think that we need to stop, although we could go on. But get the book. Please email her and ask her for the book.
It's free.
It's a wonderful book. It's hard to read, but it gives you something to think about. It's a good read, yeah.
And I said,
Well,
read
thank you
it
so
on
much,
YouTube, and part 1 is from my birth to when I got married at 18. That's part 1. I'll read it. I think it takes 2.5 hours or something. As I try to read the book.
Right. Well, thank y'all, and we'll see you on December 15th, right here. Thank you. It's wonderful.
Do you know who your guest is then?
I should have brought a box of tissues. I don't know about you guys, but this was really a tearjerker for me. It is. It's great. And so I feel very blessed that I got to know her and made my Thanksgiving perfect. So anyway, we'll see y'all next time. Grab some fudge on your way out.